We're going to give a few more minutes for people to come in before we start listening. Give a couple more people some time. If they show up, they show up. They don't, they don't. Hopefully some people come in. We'll give them to the 5-minute mark, I guess. Let's try to get some people in here. This one shows up. That one is not on. Okay, so turn this way on. I'll let people know that I'm live. I need to go do that real quick. Come on, stupid slow ass computer. Sometimes this computer is really slow, guys, but we're definitely going to get started here in a couple minutes. That's it. Okay, that's good, right? Give it about another minute, guys, and let a couple more people come in, maybe, and then we'll get started. Yeah, if they don't show up, oh well, they can watch it later, I guess. You guys, is the chat working? Maybe nobody's talking. That might be it too. All right, let's get started.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. This morning it looks like somebody blew up the Kakovka Dam.
We're starting from episode 1 of his Twitter show, so we probably won't get through it all today because it's like an hour and 1 minute long for the first 5 episodes. So,
In southern Ukraine. The Russian wall of water wiped out entire villages, destroyed a critical hydropower plant, and as of tonight puts the largest nuclear reactor in Europe in danger of melting down. So if this was intentional, it was not a military tactic, it was an act of terrorism. The question is, who did it? Well, let's see. The Kakovka Dam was effectively Russian. It was built by the Russian government. It currently sits in Russian-controlled territory. The dam's reservoir supplies water to Crimea, which has been, for the last 240 years, home of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Blowing up the dam may be bad for Ukraine, but it hurts Russia more. And for precisely that reason, the Ukrainian government has considered destroying it. In December, the Washington Post quoted a Ukrainian general saying his men had fired American-made rockets at the dam's floodgate as a test strike. So really, once the facts start coming...
So they blew up something that they shouldn't have blew up just to blow it up? That's what it sounds like. What the fuck? Like, it hurts both sides, so why would you blow up something that hurts both sides? That doesn't make any sense.
I mean, it becomes much less of a mystery what might have happened to the dam. Any fair person would conclude that the Ukrainians probably blew it up, just as you would assume they blew up Nord Stream, the Russian natural gas pipeline, last fall. And in fact, the Ukrainians did do that, as we now know. It's not like Vladimir Putin is anxious to wage war on himself. Oh, but that's where you're wrong, Mr. and Mrs. Cable News consumer. Vladimir Putin is exactly that sort of man, the sort of man who'd shoot himself to death in order to annoy you. We know this from the American media, which wasted no time this morning in accusing the Russians of sabotaging their own infrastructure. Bill Kristol.
Russia destroyed a water thing to help their self. That makes sense, I guess, whatever.
The man who once told us that Saddam Hussein was responsible for 9/11 immediately denounced Putin as a war criminal and even more savagely compared him to Donald Trump. The rest of the pundit class made similar, clearly...
Donald Trump's way better than freaking Vladimir Putin, for sure.
...coordinated noises. Putin did it! Putin did it! Again. And the reasoning was simple. Putin is evil, and evil people do evil things purely for the dark joy of being evil. In this specific case, Putin attacked himself, which is the most evil thing you can do, and therefore perfectly in character for a man that evil. That was their explanation. No one had no chance of that. Ukraine, as you may have heard, is led by a man called Zelensky. We can say for a dead certain fact that he was not involved. He couldn't have been. Zelensky is too decent for terrorism. Now, you see him on television, and it's true you might form a different impression. Sweaty and rat-like, a comedian turned oligarch, a persecutor of Christians, a friend of BlackRock. But don't believe your own eyes. Actually, Mr. Zelensky is a very good man. The best, really. As George W. Bush once noted, he is our generation's Winston Churchill. Of all the people in the world, our shifty, dead-eyed Ukrainian friend in the tracksuit is uniquely incapable of blowing up a dam. He's literally a living saint, a man in whom there is no sin. That's why Lindsey Graham is so attracted to him. They're just two good people, hanging out together and being good. And
I have a feeling that this is going somewhere where it's not going to be good. Like, this guy's not as good as what he's saying he is right here at the moment.
Like all good people, when they meet in person, they spend a lot of time talking about killing people and laughing like friends do. Here's the pair last week.
Free or die.
Free or die.
Now you are free.
Yes.
And we will be.
And the Russians are dying.
It's the best money we've ever spent. Thank you so much.
No, it's...
The Russians are dying. It's the best money we've ever spent, Graham says. A smile spreads across his thin, quivering lips as he forms the words. He looks like a starving man contemplating a breakfast buffet. The aroma of death has aroused Lindsey Graham. Thanks so much, replies Zelensky. He feels the same way. See, there's something dark here. Just two middle-aged guys celebrating.
How's it going, Daniel?
Killing of a population. They don't seem like the kind of people who'd enjoy flooding villages or starting a famine. And in any case, who cares if they are? It's really not your business. Your job is to support Ukraine. Watch Nikki Haley, a Republican candidate for president, explain this principle on CNN.
A win for Ukraine is a win for all of us.
Ukraine, we shouldn't even be fighting a war in Ukraine at all. It has nothing to fucking do with us at all. Nothing. We shouldn't be over there at all. Not even at all. Like, we shouldn't be sending them money. We shouldn't be over there. We shouldn't be fighting them. We shouldn't help them. That's their problem, not ours. What the fuck are we even over in Ukraine for? They're not going to give us any money. We're going to keep giving them money, but they ain't going to give us shit. Like, if we ever get attacked, do you think these countries are going to help us? Fuck no. We help all these countries, and none of them are going to help us ever. Ever.
And for them to sit there and say that this is a territorial dispute, that's just not the case. To say that we should stay neutral, it is in the best interest of America. It's in the best
interest of America not to vote for you, Nikki. That's the best interest of America right now. This Nikki Hale or whatever her name is. Yeah, don't vote for her. I'm voting for Trump. I'm sorry. That's just how I am.
Interest of our national security for Ukraine to win. We have to see this through. We have to finish it.
See? It's very easy to understand. It is vitally important for you to support Ukraine because it's necessary for Ukraine to be supported by you. Your support is mandatory until it's finished, whatever it is, and whatever that means.
Well, they can take their support and shove it up their ass because I'm not supporting Ukraine at all, and I don't plan on starting today.
Shut up and support Ukraine, or else you're in trouble.
Well, I guess I'm in trouble because I ain't supporting Ukraine at all.
They still taught logic. Statements like this were known as tautologies. Something is true because it is. The more you repeat it, the truer it becomes. It's a self-reinforcing reality. There was a time when tautologies were considered illegitimate arguments, not to mention hilariously stupid. Only dumb people talk like that. Now everybody in power talks like that. Diversity is our strength. Trans women are women. Zelensky is Churchill.
Trans women are women. No, they're not. Trans women are men, and trans men are females. You're born what you're born, and that's it. Stop with the trans bullshit. You're playing dress up. That's what you're doing. You're still a man or a woman, depending on how you were born. You're just playing dress up.
It's all self-evidently true. Doesn't need an explanation, and don't ask questions. Sound familiar? Of course it does. That's the pap they're serving us day after day in steaming, lumpy portions. By this point, it's possible that American citizens are the least informed people in the world. Your average yak herder in Tajikistan knows who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. It's obvious. Does he think some skinny dude in a dress is actually a girl? Come on. That idea would never occur to him.
Oh, that's fucked up and sad, though, really. Like, we're all paying attention to this stupid crap that's going on with this trans shit and all this other stupid fucking shit they keep putting in front of us. Like, I know some of you guys aren't like this. I'm not like this. I go find my own news. I don't follow Fox or CNN because I think they're both full of shit. I go find my own news. But most people don't. They follow either Fox or CNN and believe everything they say. Don't fucking do that. Don't fucking do that. Even Tucker left Fox, so that should tell you something.
You've got to be lied to at full volume over a period of years in order to reach conclusions like that. And of course, we have been. The media lie. They do. But mostly they just ignore the stories that matter. What's happened to the hundreds of billions of US dollars we've sent to Ukraine? No clue.
We just sent $6.2 billion to Ukraine, and they said it was a error that we sent it. We didn't mean to send them $6.2 billion. How do you make a $6.2 billion error?
Who organized those BLM riots 3 years ago? No one's gotten to the bottom of that. What exactly happened on 9/11? Well, it's still classified. How did Jeffrey Epstein make...
What happened on 9/11 is our own government blew up the World Trade Centers and shot a bomb at the Pentagon. That's what happened.
All that money. How did he die? How about JFK? And so endlessly on. Not only are the media not interested in any of this, they are actively hostile to anybody who is. In journalism, curiosity is the gravest crime. Yesterday, for example, a former Air Force officer who worked for years in military intelligence came forward as a whistleblower to reveal that the U.S. government has physical evidence of crashed non-human-made aircraft, as well as the bodies of the pilots who flew those aircraft. The Pentagon has spent decades studying these otherworldly remains in order to build more technologically advanced weapons systems. Okay. That's what the former intel officer revealed, and it was clear he was telling the truth. In other words, UFOs are actually real, and apparently so.
Well, duh. Like, duh. If anybody in this, I mean, I'm sorry, maybe this is me being an ass, but if you think we're the only humans, the only species of people in this whole fucking galaxy that we're in, this whole galaxy we're in, if you think we're the only people in that, you're fucking delusional. Like, there's gotta be way more people than just us out there in the universe. We're not the only people in this whole universe. And our universe is light years away, so we haven't seen not even a blimp of the whole world, the whole universe. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's just me. Like, there's no way we could be the only people in this whole galaxy. It's dumb to even think that. But so many people actually think that, which is just they're fucking idiots. Sorry.
There was extraterrestrial life. Now we know. In a normal country, this news would qualify as a bombshell, the story of the millennium. But in our country, it doesn't. The whistleblower's account ran on a technology website called The Debrief, which you probably never heard of. The Washington Post had that story, but decided not to run it. The New York Times, meanwhile, just pretended it never happened. On the front page of the New York Times website this morning, there were 5 stories about Ukraine, as well as 4 stories apiece about Donald Trump, trans people, and climate change, the usual lineup. There was nothing at all about how an alien species is flying hypersonic aircraft over our cities. Not one word. So if you're wondering why our country seems so dysfunctional, this is a big part of the reason.
It's because we got Democrats running the country right now. That's why we're defunct. That's why the country's fucked. We got Democrats running the country.
Nobody.
There are some good Democrats, I'm not going to lie. There's some good Democratic people. But our Democratic government sucks.
Nobody knows what's happening. A small group of people control access to all relevant information, and the rest of us don't know. We're allowed to yap all we want about racism, but go ahead and talk about something that really matters and see what happens. If you keep it up, they'll make you be quiet. Trust us. That's how they maintain.
Unless you're a white person. You're not allowed to talk about nothing if you're a white person. You're supposed to keep your mouth shut and let everybody speak shit about you, but you don't say anything.
Control. When Western tourists first started traveling in large numbers to the Soviet Union in the early 1970s, they found that
you shouldn't be discriminating against any color. None. We all bleed the same.
Many Russians had a completely warped understanding of the United States. They thought that Americans lived in grinding poverty, in a state of perpetual race war, and were desperate to flee to the freedom and prosperity of the Eastern Bloc. They thought this because that's what they had been told. They had no way to know otherwise. The few Russians who understood what was really going on in the rest of the world had learned about it from listening to shortwave radio broadcasts, sometimes under the covers so the neighbors wouldn't hear it. 50 years later, it is bewildering to consider the ironies here. We're the ones who live in ignorance now. The US government has managed to classify more than 1 billion so-called public documents. So at this point, we can't possibly know what our leaders are doing. We're not allowed to know. By
a billion documents that we're not allowed to see, but yet we're supposed to be controlling our government. Think about that. There's 1 billion documents you're not allowed to see, but the people are supposed to be controlling the government. We're definitely not. The government's controlling us.
definition, that is not a democracy. Yet it's fine with the media. Secrecy is a powerful tool of control. Stop asking how we got so rich. Here's another story about racism. Go eat each other. That's the program. That's how most of us now live here in the United States. Manipulated by lies, silenced by taboos. It is unhealthy and it's dehumanizing.
If you pay attention, guys, if the news is talking about something, and I don't care what side, Fox or CNN, if they're talking about something, there's something else going on. Go find out what else is going on, because what they're talking about is hiding what's happening over here. And that you should definitely go check what's going on over here when the news is talking over here, because they're definitely hiding, both sides, Fox and CNN, are hiding something that's happening over here. Like with this, the submarine thing that just happened. Yes, it's sad what happened, but they knew that submarine exploded the day it happened, but ran the story like these people had 96 hours to live to cover up what was going on over here, which was Joe Biden's son Hunter's shit. They're covering that up over here because we were all paying attention to what was happening with the submarine over here. And that happens all the time. All the time. What's up, blue hair?
And we're tired of it. As of today, we've come to Twitter, which we hope will be the shortwave radio under the blankets. We're told there are no gatekeepers here. If that turns out to be false, we'll leave. But in the meantime, we are grateful to be here. We'll be back with much more very soon.
All right, episode 2.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. Let's say you wanted to control a country. How would you start? Well, you'd want to make sure you had the complete obedience of everybody inside your borders who was authorized to use deadly force. You would start with the military, and then federal law enforcement, and move your way down ultimately to agencies like the IRS. Controlling the guns would be a top priority for you if you ever wanted to go dictatorial, if you wanted to be baby doc.
Good fucking luck ever controlling the guns in the United States. I posted a thing, it's about a month ago, but I posted a thing on my YouTube wall about a month ago that said, us American people had more guns than every army in the world. Think about that. The American people had more guns and ammunition than every army in the whole world. Good luck taking the guns from the American people.
But let's say you had deeper ambitions. Let's say you wanted the power not simply to control people's behavior, but to control how they think, not just their bodies, but their minds, as a god would. In that case, you need to take charge of the society's taboos. A taboo is something that by popular consensus is not allowed. A taboo may not be illegal, but it doesn't need to be. Over time, social prohibitions are more powerful and more enduring than laws. Societies are defined.
Yeah, and you should legally be allowed to. As long as you don't do anything to break the law, I should be allowed to own a gun. You should be allowed to own a gun. Anybody should be allowed to own a gun. If you broke the law, that's your fault you can't own a gun. But most of the people that break the law, they own guns too. People are like, well, if you take this gun away, it'll stop this. No, criminals don't go buy their guns from Walmart. They go buy it from the black market. Like, if the guns aren't there, they're going to get them somehow anyway. People are thinking that, oh, if we get rid of guns, it's going to make everything better. No, it's not. The criminals are still going to get guns.
By what they will not permit, as are famously religions. Muslims don't eat pork, neither do Orthodox Jews. Traditional Christians oppose extramarital sex. The Amish avoid electricity, and so on. American society isn't overtly religious, but it's governed by taboos, and it always has been. What's interesting is how fast our taboos are changing. This is not happening organically. What we're allowed to dislike is being dictated to us from above, sometimes by force. Until fairly recently, for example, it was taboo in this country to attack people on the basis of their race. That was the main lesson of the Second World War, we were told again and again. The one thing we learned from the Nazis is that it's dangerous to reduce human beings to their genetic code. There is no master race.
We all bleed red. All of us.
That made sense, but apparently we no longer believe it. Punishing people based on their skin color is not only permitted in modern America, it is mandatory throughout business and government and higher education, as long as the victims are white. At one time, that would have been unimaginable. So would the current behavior of our politicians. As recently as the 1992 presidential campaign, adultery was considered disqualifying for anyone seeking higher office. Bill Clinton was very nearly derailed in the New Hampshire primary by his affair with Jennifer Flowers. Clinton went to elaborate lengths to lie about the relationship because he had no choice. But he was the last presidential candidate who had to meet this standard. By 2008, it was obvious to anybody who was paying attention that Barack Obama had a strange and highly creepy personal life. Yet nobody ever asked him about it. By that point, a leader's behavior within his own marriage, the core relationship of his life, had been declared irrelevant. It was Barack Obama's business, not yours. One by one, with increasing speed, our old taboos have been struck down. Those that remain have lost their moral force. Stealing, flaunting your wealth, striking women.
And it's crazy. Like, I don't know, in California, they just passed a law that if you go in and steal from any place in California that sells goods, if you go in and steal the goods, the place that owns the building, the people that run the store, cannot stop you. By law, you have to let them steal your products, and you cannot stop them. You got to let them leave. That's a law they just passed in California. I'm sorry, but pretty soon California is not going to have any businesses because they're all going to take their business elsewhere. Like, really? You can just come in and steal right off my shelf and I can't stop you because the law says I can't? That's fucking crazy.
Smoking marijuana on the street, shameless public hypocrisy, taking other people's money for not working. All of these things used to be considered unacceptable in America, not anymore. So it probably shouldn't surprise us that the greatest taboo of all is teetering on the edge of acceptability, child molestation. A generation ago, talking to someone else's children about sex.
Yeah, this is fucking fucked up right here. Like, this makes me want to slap our government. Like, yeah. Fucking stupid.
Was widely considered grounds for a thrashing. Touching them sexually was effectively a death penalty offense. When Jeffrey Dahmer was bludgeoned to death in the bathroom of a Wisconsin prison in 1994, the Milwaukee district attorney had cautioned the public not to turn Dahmer's killer into a folk hero. Jeffrey Dahmer had molested and murdered children. People felt justified in celebrating his death. 25 years later, that standard had changed dramatically in the state of Wisconsin, as in the rest of the country. In the summer of 2020, during the BLM riots in Kenosha, 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse defended his life from a convicted child molester called Joseph Rosenbaum. Rosenbaum was trying to kill Rittenhouse, so Rittenhouse shot him in self-defense. But it was Joseph Rosenbaum whom the media cast as the victim of the story. Kyle Rittenhouse, meanwhile, an underage boy fending off violence from a child molester, was denounced as the villain. Ultimately, he was indicted for murder. One of the things that this tells us is the people who run our country no longer see child molesters as the worst among us.
And they should. That should definitely, for sure, be the worst people in the world. If you're talking about a kid in that type of way, you should be put in prison. Even if you're talking about him that way. What the fuck is wrong with the way the world is now? What the fuck is wrong with people? They're okay with this now. It's like lots of people are okay with it. It's not okay.
It's never been more obvious than it was yesterday when the Wall Street Journal ran a long expose about kiddie porn on Instagram. Instagram, the journal found, quote, helps connect and promote a vast network of accounts openly devoted to the commission and purchase of underage sex content. Instagram connects pedophiles and connects them to content sellers of child pornography. In one instance, the paper discovered that Instagram was recommending the phrase incest toddlers to users who'd expressed interest in similar material. By the way, no one at Instagram denied that any of this had happened. nor did Mark Zuckerberg, who controls the company. The Journal story was accurate. It was all pretty shocking, but not as shocking as what happened next, which was effectively nothing at all. The largest circulation newspaper in the United States.
Nothing at all. That's what's happened a lot with all this shit. Like, nothing happens at all when it comes to a lot of this shit.
Revealed that one of the world's most influential companies was promoting pedophilia, and nobody in power did anything about it. The Justice Department did not announce an investigation. Congress did not schedule hearings. The guy who runs Instagram, Adam Mosseri, still has his job. In fact, Mosseri's last tweet, which is pinned, is a video of himself bragging about how effective Instagram's algorithm is. Keep in mind as you watch this, it's real.
People often talk about the algorithm, but there is no one algorithm for Instagram. There are many algorithms and ranking processes we use to try to personalize the experience to make it as interesting as we can for each and every person who uses Instagram. We believe in this idea of personalization. What you're interested in and what I'm interested in is different, and so therefore your Instagram and my Instagram should be different.
What you're interested in and what I'm interested in is different, Mosseri explains patiently. So your Instagram feed will be different from mine. You're interested in children, that's why you're getting all the incest toddler posts. It's a highly personalized experience. That tweet is still up tonight. Of course, everybody at Instagram, in fact,
what the fuck? What the fuck?
Everyone everywhere in authority will still claim to think that child molestation is bad, but the tone has changed unmistakably. When they say it's bad, they mean it in a kind of abstract way. Bad like a civil war in Central Africa is bad. You wouldn't prefer it, but there are reasons it happens. That's why we now refer to pedophiles as minor attracted persons, because honestly, who can judge? These people are a sexual minority, so pause before you attack them. And in any case, it's not like pedophiles are barging into the Capitol building to sit in Nancy Pelosi's chair or asking uncomfortable questions about the last election. For miscreants like that, no punishment is too harsh. So far this month, the FBI's Washington field office has issued 11 press releases. 10 out of 11 have been about January 6th. Keep in mind that January 6th happened more than 2.5 years ago. Now you know why the feds were ignoring kid touchers on Instagram. They're too busy to respond. They've got much more important things to do, like finding white supremacists. White supremacists are America's new child molesters. We've got zero tolerance for white supremacists because...
Yeah, I see it makes you angry too, Daniel. Like, what the fuck? And it's almost like it's okay nowadays, and it shouldn't fucking be.
No one threatens the life of this country more than they do. Here's Joe Biden once again making that very clear last month.
To stand up against the poison of white supremacy, as I did my inaugural address, to single out as the most dangerous terrorist threat to our homeland is white supremacy.
You do realize you're white, right? I don't even think he realizes who the fuck he is at all, guys. Like, our president has no fucking clue who he is, what he's saying, where he is. He doesn't even realize he's the president. Oh, wait, he's not. Barack Obama is. But anyways.
And I'm not saying this because I'm of a black HBCU. I say it wherever I go.
Pardon the feedback, but you heard the point. White supremacy is the most dangerous threat to the American homeland. Joe Biden just told us that. It's more dangerous than the threat of nuclear war with Russia. It's more dangerous than the threat of the Mexican drug cartels, who've already killed hundreds of thousands of Americans and are now in control of swaths of our southwestern states. White supremacy is that bad, Joe Biden says. In fact, it's worse. But what is it? That's the question. Can anyone in authority actually define white supremacy? What is it? Is white supremacy liking white people too much? If so, that's going to put those of us with white children in a pretty tough spot. Or is white supremacy something much more obviously bad, like trying to expel all non-whites from America and creating some kind of ethno-state? If that's Joe Biden's definition, what exactly is the scope of this threat? How many people are currently working on this American white ethno-state project? And what are the chances they're going to pull it off? Our guess is not very many and precisely zero. But we can't say for sure because no one has showed us the numbers. These are not rhetorical questions. When the President of the United States describes something as the worst possible crime Americans can commit, you have a right to know what that crime is. You used to have that right. Under our pre-revolutionary legal code before George Floyd, questions like these were easy to answer. A crime was defined as something that an elected...
The whole George Floyd thing was total bullshit. And I'm from Missouri, so I can say what I want about it. The whole George Floyd thing was bullshit.
Legislature had explicitly banned, usually an act that hurt somebody else. In America, crimes were described precisely with words in English and then preserved in books, which you could read yourself. If you ever wondered whether you were committing a crime, you could just look it up. You could know for sure whether you were a criminal. Now you can't.
Yeah, because the criminals nowadays, they go in, they take your fingerprints, they give you a slap on the wrist and say, we'll see you next time you do something stupid, and let them go.
And needless to say, that's the point. The point of the exercise is to keep you off balance, to keep you afraid. When no one's willing to define the offense, you can't be sure whether or not you're committing it. You could be accused at any time and everything you have taken from you. You live in fear. Remember this guy?
Emmanuel Cafferty was driving near a Black Lives Matter protest in Poway in his SDG&E truck when he says he noticed somebody following him and trying to get his attention. Later, that person posted a picture of him making what some believed is a white supremacy symbol on Twitter. Cafferty says he had no idea about any white power symbols and was just cracking his knuckles outside his window when the picture was taken of him. Later that day, he says he was notified by SDG&E that he would be suspended pending an investigation. A few days later, he was fired.
Fired for cracking your knuckles because somebody thought it was a symbol. This is how lame shit in the United States is getting. He cracked his knuckles and they thought he made some crazy symbol. So he got fired.
What that man did was so offensive, as you just saw, that local news had to blur the photograph of his hand. He was fired from his job. His life was destroyed for cracking his knuckles. He didn't know cracking his knuckles was racist in his defense, but then nobody did until the day that poor Emmanuel Cafferty was unwise enough to crack them. When a crime has no definition, anyone can be guilty of it. It's hard to relax in a country like that. The old system was better. Government operated on the basis of laws, not amorphous moral terror. Politicians couldn't accuse you of something they couldn't define. The legal code was straightforward. Child molestation was a crime. Having unfashionable...
And it still should be a fucking crime. It still should be.
...opinions was not. Outside of the public sphere, the population mostly governed itself, as it does in every society, and used taboos to do it. You knew what was allowed and what wasn't because the rules didn't change very often. The taboos were organic. They derived from collective experience and instinct, the two most reliable guides to life. They evolved for a reason. They still do. Our job at this point is to protect them, despite the hectoring, the nonstop hectoring from the people in charge. You know the outlines of right and wrong. You were born knowing them. So don't let them talk you out of what you can smell. Don't let them rationalize away your intuitive moral sense. Cling to your taboos like your life depends on them, because it does. Cherish and protect them like family heirlooms. That's exactly what they are. Hey, it's stuck.
Episode 3.
Tucker Carlson. The Biden administration arrested Donald Trump this afternoon. They had him arraigned and fingerprinted in a Miami courthouse like the accused.
Because they're dumbasses. The Biden administration.
Technically is. These were the first steps in a process that is designed to put Donald Trump behind bars for the rest of his life. Cable news carried every moment of it live. It's unprecedented, they told us, with what looked like shock. But they weren't shocked. They knew this was coming. Everyone who's paid attention knew it was. What just happened was always going to happen. It's been inevitable since February 16th, 2016. That's the day Donald Trump made a blood enemy of the largest and most powerful organization in human history, which would be the federal government. Despite what you may remember, it wasn't anything that Trump had said about immigration or trade with China or rapists from Mexico. Those are the stories that dominated the headlines that year. Trump's a racist, they screamed. Stop him! But inside Washington, that was just noise. None of it really rated. Identity politics doesn't mean much to permanent Washington. What matters, then and now, is foreign policy. The invasions and occupations and proxy wars. The decisions that determine which global populations will thrive and which will die. The policies that come with trillion-dollar price tags. The ones that, over time, have made the counties around D.C. the richest suburbs in the world. In Washington, that's what actually matters. And it's obvious when you look carefully. When there's a debate about anything else, for example, the debt ceiling, both sides take their assigned positions and they start yelling. But when Congress decides to start a war, no matter how foolish or counterproductive or obviously disconnected from America's core interests that war may be, when that happens...
And that is why we are fighting in Ukraine for no fucking reason, because it brings money. Wars bring money. That's the only reason we're fighting in Ukraine, because we shouldn't be over there at fucking all. Like, it literally has nothing whatsoever to do with us, but yet we're over there wasting our money and our resources on a war that has nothing to do with us.
The leaders of both parties automatically jump behind it like circus clowns. And then they stay there, sometimes for decades. They defend that war relentlessly against all evidence until somebody finally rings the all clear bell and they can begin to admit that actually, maybe it wasn't such a great idea. We meant well, but it just didn't work out. The good news is we've learned a lot of important lessons. In the end, they usually do say something like that, but only after emotions have cooled and the damning details have begun to fade from collective memory. It's an apology that's not actually an apology, much less repentance, and it's years too late to matter in any case. But until then, that's all you're getting. Until then, no dissent is allowed. That's the first rule of Washington. But somehow, Trump didn't bother to follow it. He is from out of town, so maybe he didn't know it was a rule, or maybe he just didn't care. Either way, 7.5 years...
Or maybe he actually cared about the American people, where our government doesn't give a shit about us.
Later, we can point to the precise moment that permanent Washington decided to send Donald Trump to prison. Here it is. It's from the Republican candidates debate in Greenville, South Carolina.
We should have never been in Iraq. We have destabilized the Middle East. They lied. They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none. There were no weapons of mass destruction.
All right. We should never have been in Iraq, Trump said. We destabilized the Middle East. Now, by the time Trump said that, a lot of Republican primary voters were starting to reach the same conclusion. How could they not? But it was the next line that doomed Trump to today's arrest. They lied, he said. There were no weapons of mass destruction, and they knew there were none.
Exactly. There never was. Ever.
Now, when he said that, a few in the crowd booed. Most just sat there in silence, stunned. Can he say that? Well, he said it anyway. And by saying that, he sealed his fate. That was the one thing you were not allowed to say, because it implicated too many people on both sides, which on this topic is really just one side. Hillary Clinton was guilty of it, but so was Paul Ryan. All of them were guilty. They all knew, they all lied. And to a person, they hated Donald Trump for exposing them. After that, it was pretty clear that even if he did get elected president, Trump was going to have a very hard time controlling the federal government he was supposed to be in charge of. Most of permanent Washington decided that thwarting Trump was the single most important mission in their lives. Everything depended on it. Many of them said so publicly, but others didn't say so publicly. In fact, the stealthier ones took another path. They ran toward Trump, not away from him. They sucked up to him. They ingratiated themselves to the man they intuitively understood was susceptible to flattery, which Trump is. And they did this in order to subvert his new administration from the inside. There were a number of these, and you could spot them immediately. They were flatterers. Invariably, the ones who flattered Trump the most hated him the most and disagreed the most strongly with his views. You saw them in the hallways of the White House and at press conferences. They were there slobbering over their boss with elaborate self-abasement, as if they were addressing a monarch or a god. It was a scene from the Ottoman court. It was filthy and decadent, and it was false. Mike Pence, Nikki Haley, Mike Pompeo, Lindsey Graham in the Congress. They all called Trump a visionary genius up until the moment he lost power. And then they unsheathed their real agenda, as always the neocon war agenda, and they piled on with maximum force. Here's Mike Pompeo, for example, on Fox News this morning.
President Trump had classified documents where he shouldn't have had them. And then when given the opportunity to return them, he chose not to do that for whatever reason. When somebody identifies that, you got to turn them in. And so that's inconsistent with protecting America's soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. And if the allegations are true, some of these...
Mike Pompeo, what a fucking loser this Republican is.
were pretty serious, important documents. So that's wrong.
May future historians hoping to unlock the mysteries of late Empire Washington study that clip, because it will reveal everything. That very same Mike Pompeo, the one who's sneering at Donald Trump on TV this morning, that guy served Donald Trump as both CIA director and as Secretary of State. Those are the two most powerful jobs in the federal government. And as he worked in those jobs, Pompeo promised, in fact, he swore to support the president's agenda. Why? Because that's the way a democracy works. You vote for a candidate in the belief that his...
Yep, he's definitely a rhino for sure, Kathy. Sadly, there's a lot of rhinos. Like, it's a big-ass fucking amount of people.
Appointees will carry out the policies that you voted for. It's not about the president, it's about you, the voter. But Pompeo didn't do that. He didn't even try to do that.
How's it going, Ashley? There's not very many people in the chat. Like, YouTube's suppressing my views, so I'm not getting because I talk about the government. I started talking about the government, so now I'm not getting that many views. But I don't really care anymore.
In fact, he undermined Trump's often stated commitment to peace and non-intervention abroad at every turn. His every waking hour was devoted to fomenting war in some faraway foreign country or other. Iran, Syria, Russia, North Korea, the list goes on. But rather than telling Trump that he disagreed with his ideas, as a man would, Pompeo toadied up to Trump, a man he despised, in the oiliest, most over-the-top way imaginable. Ask anyone who worked in that White House at the time. Who's the appointee most likely to tell Donald Trump on a daily basis that he was
Well, I went from getting like 10 or 15,000 views a day, Kathy, to like 200 or 300. As soon as once I started talking about the government like a couple of weeks ago, I went from 10,000 a day to 10,000 plus a day to like 200 or 300 a day.
Some virile, sleek, and powerful Mike Pompeo. That would be the consensus answer. Those of us who saw firsthand Pompeo's relentless kowtowing will never...
Yeah, I didn't even know you was live till I searched your channel to look at the post you had made, laughing out loud. I posted it on my community tab, but they might not even have showed that because I put Tucker Carlson's name in it. So they might not even have showed it.
Forget it. It was indelibly repulsive. No one with self-respect could do something like that. But Mike Pompeo did it effortlessly, with relish and verve. Now, this same person is telling Fox News viewers that he fears for the safety of our military, our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, in the improved phrase, because Donald Trump took some classified documents home and didn't immediately return them to the National Archives?
Here's another thing that I'll tell you. Like, on average, I get like $500-600 a month from YouTube ad revenue. Like $500 or $600 what I get per month on average with just the ads. And this month so far I made $56 with the ad revenue.
What a lie that is. Mike Pompeo knows that's a lie. He spent his entire life in Washington. Washington is a city where internal memos about Labor Day are classified because everything is classified. Your government has classified more than 1 billion federal documents, most of them boring and pointless and a danger to no one. and lock them away in secret where you can't see them because you may be an American citizen, but not really, and therefore you don't have the necessary clearances to know what's going on. And by the way, none of this is done in order to make America safer, any more than COVID restrictions were designed to keep you healthy.
COVID restrictions were a joke. Everything about COVID was a joke. It's just a joke. The whole thing, in my opinion, COVID was, yes, it's real. It's real, because I had it. But you weren't going to die from, most people didn't die from it. Like, it was a 96.8% survival rate. A 98.6. Like, that's a pretty good survival rate. The flu's like 89 point something. So, the COVID was even a better chance of living than the flu.
No, it's a caste system. That's the point. And you're the untouchable in this hierarchy. Mike Pompeo knows that. Everybody who works in Washington knows that. How many secret
I don't know if I go that far, Kathy. Like, I had the flu before, and it usually lasts a day or so, and you get sick and it's over. When I got COVID, I was the worst sickness I ever had. I was sick for 14 straight days. 14 straight days with COVID. So I think it's a little bit stronger, but it's just another name for a type of flu.
documents do you think Dick Cheney took home with him while he was running the Iraq War? How many did his wife read? She never had a clearance. We'll never know the answer because there is no chance Dick Cheney will ever be investigated or his staffers will be told to wear wires in his presence. He will never be indicted for this. Of course not. Dick Cheney is a neocon. Donald Trump is not. Dick Cheney supports war with Russia. Trump does not. That's the difference. The rest is just a distraction. The prosecution of Donald Trump is transparently political. He's literally Joe Biden's main political opponent. He's polling over 60% among Republican voters right now. So Joe Biden is doing what no president has ever dared to do. He's using law enforcement to lock up his chief rival. That's happening right now. Anyone who denies it's happening is lying to you. But actually, it's worse than that. Trump's prosecution isn't just political, it's ideological. Nobody with Trump's views is allowed to have power in this country. Criticize our wars and you're disqualified. If you keep it up, we'll send you to prison. That's the message Washington is sending. Not just the...
Yeah, you're not allowed to talk against the government because then you're in the wrong. We're seeing that with my YouTube channel.
Democratic Party is sending, but both parties are sending. Like so many Republicans, for example, the supposedly conservative governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, spent yesterday totally ignoring the destruction of the American justice system. Instead, he signed a highly important bill called the Crown Act, which, according to the celebratory tweet Abbott sent commemorating it, will, quote, prohibit discrimination based on textures and hairstyles historically associated with race. In other words, in Texas, cornrows are now protected by law. Having unapproved views about Ukraine is not. That's fine with most elected Republicans.
What the fuck? Oh, shit. Oh, man. Things that get passed into law nowadays are just, well, they're dumb. That's the way I look at it.
They find Trump tiresome and embarrassing. Their donors hate him. They will not be sad if he dies in jail. But what about voters? What are they learning from this spectacle? Well, mostly they're learning that they have no power at all because nobody cares about them. But they already knew that. Unlike so many of our elected leaders, they have been to America recently. They know what it looks like. Have you seen it? If you've got a few days this summer, find out. Take a road trip and see for yourself. Drive 500 miles in any direction and then come home. How are things looking? Well, they should look great. The federal government spent $6.5 trillion last year. That's more than any government has ever spent, ever. So at the very least, you would expect pristine public roads. Oh, no. That's not what you see when you drive around this country. There are potholes and Jersey barriers everywhere.
Exactly. Everywhere you go on main highways, anywhere, there's potholes, there's ruts. Your car will go as you're driving down main roads because there's these little bumps that are in it. Like, they ain't fixing shit.
Looks like Tegucigalpa before the Chinese decided to rebuild the infrastructure of Honduras. We don't have China buying our roads, so they're falling apart. You'd think the people you would pass on your road trip would look happy and prosperous. Again, this is a very rich country, but a lot of them don't. Quite a few appear to be struck.
Yeah, I like Governor Abbott. Just some things he does is weird. Like, yeah, he seems to be a good guy, though. I'll give him that.
Out on drugs. You see them shuffling by shuttered storefronts in small towns. And you wonder, as you see all of this, where did all the money go? It's certainly not here. Well, it's in Washington. It's in Fairfax and Loudoun counties.
It's in the governors, the senators, the House of Representatives, the FBI, and all those governor people's pockets. Because all these people, when they go into office, and think about this, guys, when they go into office, none of them are worth $1 million. Nobody, like Trump, is the only exception that are worth $1 million when they become part of the government. Nobody is. By the time you leave the government, almost every person that leaves the government is a millionaire. They shouldn't be. Because they're getting like $250,000 a year, $350,000 a year. So these people shouldn't be millionaires after 2 or 3 years, but a lot of them are millionaires within the first couple of years of being part of the government. It shouldn't be that way. That's because they're taking your money. They're taking your money and putting it in their pockets.
Leafy, perfectly manicured Northwest D.C. And of course, a huge chunk of it went to Ukraine, to Zelensky and his friends. Not because you voted for that. You didn't vote to give it to them. You never would. But because Joe Biden and his many allies, from Chuck Schumer to Mitch McConnell to Paul Ryan, and every single news anchor on all of television, all of them believe that Ukraine, its borders, its future, its infrastructure are all more important than the town that you live in. They sincerely think that, and it's obvious. Everyone in power thinks that, except for Donald Trump. Whatever else you say about him, Trump is the one guy with an actual shot at becoming president who dissents from Washington's long-standing pointless war agenda. And for that one fact, they're trying to take Trump out before you can vote for him. And that should upset me more than anything that's happened in American politics in your lifetime. Even if you don't plan to vote for Donald Trump, even if you would die before voting for Donald Trump, which is your right, and a lot of good people feel that way, even still, the destruction of our democracy, which is the right of voters to support any candidate they want, even candidates who don't want war with Russia, the destruction of that should keep you up at night. Yes, Donald Trump is a flawed man, but his sins are minor compared to those of his persecutors. In this life, we don't get to choose.
Man, he couldn't have said that any better. Yes, Trump has done some things that I consider wrong. Like, I'm a big fan of him. I like Trump. I'm going to vote for Trump if he actually wins and goes against whoever the Democratic Party person is. So I'm definitely going to vote for Trump. But, yes, Trump's bad is not nearly as bad as the rest of our government. And I'm talking all government. I'm not just talking Democratic side. All our government. They all hate Trump because Trump doesn't stay on their agenda.
Are martyrs. We can only choose our principles and America's. Hey, it's Tucker.
Episode 4. What time is it? Yeah, I'm at the hour mark, so we'll watch episode 4 on another day. So I'm going to let you guys go. Well, I'll stay. If you guys want me to stay a little bit longer, let me know. Let me go see if my mom wants to. If my mom wants to go live, then I'll end this one and I'll go live with my mom. Otherwise, we might listen to one more episode. Let me see if she wants to. go live. Hold on. Let me know when you're coming in a minute or so before you. Let me know a little bit before you guys come in here. So I can turn the air off. All right, guys. Yeah, Mom's gonna go live. So in about 15 minutes, guys. So if you guys want to come back to that live in about 15 minutes, we'll be live again with my mom. So I'm gonna end this one. We'll do episode 4 and 5 and 6 on another video. But so I'm gonna let you guys go, and we'll be live with my mom in about 15 minutes. So watch for the live, guys, because it probably won't tell you that I'm live. So I'll be live with my mom in like 15 minutes. So watch for it, because it probably won't tell you. All right, bye, guys.